So, hi Mirko, it's a pleasure to meet you at Tech Talks from LeoCode. Yet you're another interesting person, a CTO, and I just want to share with my audience that I found you through LinkedIn. Again, it was a suggestion, and what got my attention was your startup and also that you guys work fully remotely. And my question and my curiosity is always about how does it work, what are the challenges, and so on. So maybe we can start with short introduction: who you are, Mirko, what is the startup you are building, and how did you get there?
Hi, thanks for having me. I'm Mirko. I'm the co-founder of Zeroland. Zeroland is a seed stage company, and we're building a web-based software that allows companies to super easily create product photos without a photographer. So everything is generated from 3D files. So basically, what they can do is use a super simple editor. Looks a bit like a computer game in the web um, where they start from scratch or load some template, put in their product in 3D, everything, pick some decoration, some settings from a huge list of objects that we offer, for example, fruit. And yes, similar to Canva in 3D. Yes, this is often what it's compared to. And at the end, they get a photorealistic image back.
That's very interesting. As you probably have noticed, that Canva became one of the most valuable companies in the world and valued, actually. They've received another founding, I don't know, last week or 2 weeks ago. So out of the crazy idea made by some Australian couple, they went to one of the biggest graphic design software, which still, in my opinion, is super simple. It's quite straightforward. It just gives the power of non-graphical people to just build some graphic design or social media posts.
Exactly. That's also our approach, right? So what they did is basically do a Photoshop, but without the learning curve, so everybody can do it. And we built the same thing for 3D, so you don't need to know anything about 3D to use our tool. It's like everybody can use a camera, right? Of course, there are different skill levels, but everybody can take pictures, and this is also true for our platform.
So who are your users? Who does use the 3D pictures currently? If you can give me some most common examples.
Right now, most of them are long tail, so there are companies like Saturo, many companies that sell direct to consumer, a lot of nutritional companies, a lot of food and beverages. So usually these companies are quite small, so up to 10 people, something like that, who have their marketing department internalized, and they see, okay, we really struggle to create content, right? Either they do the photos by themselves or they talk with the photographer, which is expensive, takes a long time. If they want to try something out, they have to rehire them. Just takes a long time. And with us, they can play around, maybe even test different layouts on their 3D objects. With us, if a shot doesn't look right, they can just repeat it, change a little bit up, then keep using it. And it's just super fast. So with a new version that we're currently developing, users get their pictures even in a live view. So photorealistic live preview, so to say. And usually photographers take weeks until you get your
Sure,
images. So
I
that's a
know for
huge
photo.
advantage for them.
Yeah, photo shoots, like the whole studio, lamps, everything takes time, money, and it's not always accurate. And yeah, and the production process, it's very very long. So who found
Exactly,
that?
yes.
Who found the idea? How was the idea born?
This was a long process. I mean, as usual with startups, you start somewhere completely else. So at the beginning, there was an idea similar to Canva. Then we moved to 3D. We saw that basically the ground truth of everything would be a digital 3D twin. So at the beginning, it was more an idea of developing an AR app where you can open your phone, the camera app. It would detect where your object is on a table, for example, and just replace the environment. But we saw that this is super hard. The product still looks shitty because you have shitty lighting at your dinner table or wherever you're taking the photo or in your office. So then we moved to completely 3D, where we have the full power and can always adapt to everything that we need. So we have full control and create perfect photos. In some cases, we have even more flexibility and power than a real photographer with a physical camera.
The next question is about your team, because from what I've noticed, you work remotely. And how does it work? How do you manage to cooperate with different members worldwide? And where is your team located? If you can just give me a little words about that.
So right now we're 10 people in the company, and we're distributed all over Europe, basically. So we have people in Germany, in Austria, in the Netherlands, in Lithuania, in Poland, new team member joining, in Greece. So basically all over Europe. And generally we hiring in our time zone ±2, something like that. So instead of just being able to hire in Vienna, where we started the whole company with about 2 million people, now we have like over 2 billion people that are living in our time zone that we could potentially hire. So this is a huge advantage.
That's.
Um,
But did it start before pandemic or during the pandemic?
So before the pandemic and at the start, we were quite convinced that we are a company that will be not working remotely because we have very complex setups. We need rendering computers, all of that stuff. We said, hey, we often sit together, look into one screen, troubleshoot. This is pretty much impossible to change, and we will not be a remote company. Then Corona hit. We had one super developer that we absolutely wanted to have. He came from the Netherlands, said, okay, I'm willing to relocate to Vienna. But then we had lockdowns and he was not able to come to Vienna. Then we had one meeting. He actually got Corona on his way back in the train, which was pretty bad, actually. So he could not join us physically for 3 or 4 months. And we noticed, hey, this is actually working pretty well, even remotely. Also with Together, we will probably talk a bit more about it later. So we saw, hey, this is working very well. And instead of having hiring cycles of 3 months, 4 months, sometimes we could hire people within days. So we said, hey, this is working very well. Let's be a remote first company. And that's how we are right now.
Okay, so how do you find talents worldwide?
In today's world, where you need very specialized people, especially us, in the overlap of rendering, real-time rendering, photorealistic rendering, web technologies, sometimes there are only a few people in the world who you search for, right? So it's usually those people, if they're really good, they also already have jobs. So usually if you just put out a job offer, and I mean, maybe you're lucky, but usually you're not. So pretty much everybody that is working in our team is sourced. So we actually go the extra miles and search for people, mostly online, and contact them, talk with them. So usually this is outbound, how we find our people. Although we're a small team, we have a head of people right now who is also helping a lot. So we have a very strong emphasis on hiring super good people. It's super hard to get in. Sometimes we contact 1,000 people until we fill a position, which is obviously super expensive, but that helps us that we have a super high standard and really motivated, very capable people in the team.
Okay. How about, again, I've seen that you're using GatherTown as a tool, and it got me very curious because it's kind of a virtual world where you can all meet together. How did you find this tool? How does it work? And does it make an impact, a good one, on your remote work team?
I think right now it's an essential tool, and maybe without Gather we wouldn't have gone remote. So we found it, I think, on Product Hunt. This is also a startup from the Valley. What it enables us is to have a similar style of interactions within the team, right? So if you're in a real office, sometimes you just walk into people, talk with them a little bit. If you need something from another person, you can just walk to their office and talk with them. And Gather is allowing a similar mode of interaction, right? So many companies who are fully remote still have to write in Slack like, hey, do you have 5 minutes? Can we jump into a call? There's always this overhead. And you don't connect really to people where you don't really have business things to discuss, right? It's weird, like, hey, we haven't talked in a while, let's schedule a call. That's weird. So Gather takes all of these things away. You can just walk up to a person, and I do that quite constantly. Hey, I haven't spoken to you in a week. How are you doing? Uh, what are you currently working on, and so on. And also, if I have a question that's urgent, I just walk up to that person, connect with them automatically in a video chat, and talk with them. And that's super helpful, and I think gives this feeling of I'm actually in the office right now, even though it's virtual. And also, many people then have the feeling if I log in together, I'm at work. If I log out, I'm not at work anymore. And this helps building this boundary between a private life and work, which is for many people quite important.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely. So, last question. How do you think the future of work will look like, especially in our industry? As what you said was that before the pandemic, you couldn't believe that the remote company can work efficiently. And right now, it works. So, maybe what's your vision or what's your thought on that?
Um, I think there will be some transformation, but it's still a long way. So what we are seeing is, and I talked with a lot of people during the pandemic, a lot of companies were remote, right? They didn't really have a chance, or they just ignored the pandemic and had even some people contracting corona. So there it went okay. But now I see a lot of companies, especially larger companies, going back and say, yes, okay, now we allow, I don't know, 3 days of home office, but we need you to be in the office on these days because otherwise we are losing our culture. Um, my approach to that is different. I see that working in a remote first setup is just different, right? You have different challenges than if you're working in a remote office. And companies who say, oh, remote doesn't work for us, I have a very strong opinion that in many cases they're just lazy, right? They don't want to deal with changing processes and so on. So obviously, if you're not in a service based industry, if you create something physically, you cannot do remote first, right? If you have to produce something and so on. And also, some people are just not made to be sitting at home or in a co-working space working on their own. But in many cases, I think it's a great opportunity, right? So um, it's easier to hire. And if you meet twice a year, you can also build a decent a decent culture in the future. So for us, for example, we meet twice a year. 2 weeks ago, all of the team met in Barcelona for a few days, have a couple of drinks, and that you shape this culture also outside of virtual world. When people join, they get the Oculus Quest 2 sent to them. So then you can play a round of mini golf. For example, we're running a mini golf tournament in VR right now. So you really feel close to people. You can walk around them, right? So you need to think about these topics, and you need a way of dealing with the issues. If you don't, then of course you will have a problem with culture. But it gives you a lot of benefits. People can pick when they work. They might be more efficient. It's easier to hire. You can exploit global inequalities or make them less unequal. If I hire now a person more in East Europe, they get probably for Austria less money than they would get if they're in Austria, but they get more money and more salary in their respective countries. So this is also an um, equalizing process, I would say. And I can see that in the future, more companies will realize that and will
Okay,
switch
well,
to remote first.
I have the same feeling. I guess it all depends also on the personality, as some people to and of the type of work. If you have creative work, it's good to meet from time to time in person, because the creativity is born quite often when people shake hands and I don't grab those coffee, have some free fresh air and so on. On the other side, when you work remotely, you can have deep work. You kind of all distractions, sorry, and then you just do your work. In the office, there might be always someone asking you, triggering you, and so on. So we have to keep the balance. But my last question is about Zeroland. What's your future as a company? Do you have some, I don't know, big plan? What is your North Star direction?
So we think that our approach to photography will be the future. Um, what we are working on right now is to bring our product to a larger audience. So we're developing a new version of our platform that's way more capable, integrating the feedback of our customers, and then become the address if you need visual content in the future, wherever you are and whatever you do, as long as you have some kind of physical product.
Thank you. Fingers crossed for this success. And it was great hosting you during my podcast. And one more time, thank you for joining.
Thank